So when we talk about command and control and we talk about servant leadership, what are we saying? What are those things? So let's take a look real quick at a standard definition. So if we as we look at command and control leadership, it's basically a management style based upon a strict hierarchy of authority. Command and control leaders have specific authority to issue commands with the expectation that those commands must be followed or discipline is applied. Let's think about that. You know, the expectation is those commands are followed, otherwise discipline is going to be applied. Now, command and control is a leadership style that's been around for a long time, and it's been very successful, very successful. And organizations and companies have been very successful using it. It is by far the leadership style in most of the military organizations. So it's not that it can't be successful or it can't be used successfully, but it is command and control, and it has some limitations, and we'll talk a little bit about those as we move on. Servant leadership, and this is from Robert Greenleaf, who is basically the father of servant leadership. He says a servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of people in the communities to which they belong, while traditional leadership generally involves the accumulation of an exercise of power at the top. Servant leadership is different. The servant leader shares power. He puts the needs of others first and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. So as we take a look at this definition, we see that servant leadership is, to an extent, it's more involved in the day-to-day lives of those that are part of the team or an organization that utilizes this leadership style. Very involved. It doesn't take away. It doesn't say there are not any leaders, but it talks about power, and it talks about leadership, and it talks about the needs of others and helping others perform. So servant leadership is probably, it's more like what it says. It's servant. It involves serving others. And that's kind of what when it comes down to it, that's what really, life is about. It's about serving others and serving and others and being served as well. So servant leadership as a style is it's on the rise. It really is. And not, as I said, not just in the agile community or in software development. It's on a rise across all kinds of organizations. So when we talk about command and control, and we talk about servant leadership, what are some of the characteristics? Well, at the top here, it says the rise of servant leader is due to the shift away from top-down managerial thinking. This shift involves a new focus on customers, communities, and employees. And this is very interesting. It says a new focus. Well, and it's kind of interesting that if we're involved in business, if we're involved in providing a service, why would we have to have a new focus on our customers and on our community and on our employees? But the reality is, in the past, that hasn't necessarily been the case. As we look at command and control leadership, and here's Boss. I introduced him to you earlier, and we're going to talk a little bit about Boss. It views people as objects. It views people as objects and is motivated by control and profit, and insists that people follow the rules. Well, there's nothing wrong with profit, and there's nothing wrong with having rules. But when you take a look and you view people as objects or a means to an end, sometimes that does not bode well for that individual, for the customer, or for the community, or for the employee. Because if profit is your main focus, then sometimes profit ends up being by any means necessary And sometimes that does not bode well for the customer, for the community, or for the employee. Whereas now, if we look at servant leadership, it views people as potential. Let's think about that, potential. So in other words, servant leadership looks at an individual and it sees not an object, it sees potential. And it also is motivated by the growth and impact that that individual can have. That individual can have on an organization, that individual can have on their particular team, and that impact and the growth that that individual can have, over the span of being involved in an organization. So servant leadership is about growing that individual and making sure or increasing their impact on the particular entity that they're involved in. And finally, it says it insists that people surpass themselves. And so what does that mean? People surpass themselves. In other words, it goes back to that growth and the impact. How many of us have been, helped by other folks investing in us and helping us to surpass that which we thought we could not surpass, helping us to become that which we thought we could not become. And that's what servant leadership is about. It's about being, committed to individuals, and it involves developing individuals in making and helping that person to be the best that they can be. And a servant leader, he looks at an individual, he looks at a team, he looks at an organization, and they see the potential in that person, in that individual, in that organization, or that team. They look and they see potential. They don't see, they're not looking at what they can get out of that individual. They're looking for what that individual, what that team, or what that organization can be. And that's what servant leadership is about. Looking at the potential of an individual, a person, or an entity, or an organization, or a team. So, Mindy, at this particular point in time, are there any questions? Or, I'm going to stop right here and see if anyone have any comments or questions.
I don't see any in the chat box, but you guys are welcome to type some in the chat box or unmute and ask any questions if you'd like.